Most people look at cheap cars and immediately think, well, obviously they're junk. And that's their biggest mistake, because there are cars that everyone ignores today, and tomorrow they'll be fought over and fetch a whole new price. This video features 3 such cars. No hype, no fantasy, just cars that look unremarkable, but are actually hidden gold. If you watch to the end, you'll never look at cheap cars the same way again. The Oldsmobile Toronado 1966 is the kind of car that people looked at back then and couldn't understand what was going on. A big American coupe, long, heavy, looking like a true muscle car, and with front-wheel drive. In 1966, when most people didn't even think such a thing was possible. And here's where it gets interesting. The Toronado wasn't a cheap car, nor was it mass-produced junk. It was expensive, complex, and seriously built. Oldsmobile invested in it as a showcase for technology. Look, we can do things differently. And that's precisely why it's so often ignored today. People don't like cars that defy conventional wisdom. Front-wheel drive for such a huge coupe sounded like a mistake, but in reality, it gave the car a completely different feel. The Toronado drove calmly, confidently, without constantly fighting the rear wheels. It wasn't trying to be sporty, it simply drove smoothly and steadily, like a large American airliner on wheels. Under the hood was a huge V8, powerful, torquey, and full of character. And this is an important point. The Toronado wasn't an experiment for the sake of experimentation. It was a fully fledged car that could be driven every day, not a strange concept car for show. Why is it so rarely looked at today? Because it doesn't fit into any convenient category. It's not a classic muscle car, it's not a luxury Cadillac, it's not a sports coupe. It's somewhere in the middle, and those are often the first cars the market forgets. And that's where the Toronado becomes a real gem. It can still be found for less than it deserves. It's rare, technologically important, and yet it looks like it wasn't designed for show, but for a confident, quiet ride. The Oldsmobile Toronado is a car for those who understand the context, for those who value bold engineering, not hype. And that's precisely why it's ignored today, and tomorrow, cars like this will command a whole new price. But the Toronado wasn't the only car in the mid-60s that was built with purpose, not just for the sake of making a splash. The next car took a different path. It looked quieter, more composed, and even more understated. But that was precisely where its value lay. The Buick Riviera 1966 is a car that's easy to miss. It doesn't shout, doesn't try to prove it's special, and that's precisely why it's often underestimated today. The Riviera was never about show, it was about taste. In the mid-1960s, Buick created something rare, a car for people who didn't need explanations. The Riviera looked calm, clean, and uncluttered. It didn't demand attention, but when you started looking at it, it became clear. Everything had been thought through. Under the hood was a big V8, not for racing, but for a confident, smooth ride. The Riviera doesn't twitch, doesn't fuss, and doesn't tire. It drives as if rushing wasn't even part of its plan. This is a car that doesn't rush the driver, but adapts to them. The interior is a different story. Spacious, quiet, with a cozy feeling you wouldn't expect from a coupe. There's no ostentatious luxury here, but there is quality. Everything is designed for long, tireless drives. And that's what Buick is all about. Comfort without unnecessary noise. Why is the Riviera so inexpensive today? Because it doesn't fit into popular labels. It's not a muscle car, not ultra-luxury, not a sports legend. It's simply a good car. And simply good cars are often ignored by the market, and that's where its value begins. The Riviera is a rare combination of design, comfort, and character. It looks mature, and with each passing year, such cars gain in value because they don't age, they mature. The 1966 Buick Riviera is the choice of someone who doesn't chase trends, someone who understands that true value isn't always immediately apparent. It's still possible to buy one sensibly, but such cars don't go unnoticed for long. But not all underrated cars of that era were calm and reserved. The next one took a different path. It looked sterner, heavier, and noticeably meaner. The Mercury Marauder 1964 is a car that says at first glance, "I'm not for everyone." Big, heavy, and austere. No pretense, just mass, lines, and a sense of power. In its day, it looked serious. Today, it's simply misunderstood. The Marauder appeared at a time when the market was beginning to divide between fast and beautiful, and Mercury followed its own path. Instead of flash and aggression, there was confidence. Instead of flashy details, there was understated design. This was a car for those who didn't want to explain their choice. Under the hood is a big V8, not for stoplight racing, but for a feeling of traction and quiet power. The Marauder doesn't beg to be revved. It pulls from low revs, smoothly and confidently. This is a car that doesn't rush because it has nowhere to rush. The interior is spacious, heavy, almost naval-like. There's no sense of sporty fuss here. Everything points to a different approach. Go far, go calmly, go with a sense of control. And in this, the Marauder was honest. It didn't try to be something it wasn't. Why is it so little noticed today? Because it doesn't fit into the usual mold. It's not a classic muscle car. It's not a luxury flagship. It's not a rare exotic. It's somewhere in between. And it's precisely these kinds of cars that often fly under the radar. And that's precisely its strength. The Marauder is a car for those who understand the era, who appreciate the weight, character, and feel of true Americana. Today you can find it for less than it deserves. But such things rarely go unnoticed for long. The Mercury Marauder is the perfect finale to this list, a car that's easy to miss and hard to forget once you get it. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you for being here. There will be more underrated cars, hidden ideas, and quiet legends that are rarely talked about. Subscribe to the channel, it only gets more interesting.